2 years ago, my husband vanished without a goodbye. Everyone thought he was dead. Last week, I saw him at a beach resort, holding hands with a woman I've never seen, laughing with 2 little boys. He looked right at me and smiled like we were strangers. My name is Claire, and for a long time, I thought I was a widow. That's what people called me when they didn't know what else to say. Poor Claire, such a tragedy. Her husband just vanished. He must have been taken. Or worse. It was easier to believe he died than to face the other truth, that he chose to disappear. 2 years ago, my husband Mason walked out the door on a Friday morning with a travel mug in hand and a kiss on my forehead. That was the last I ever saw of him. We lived in Evergreen, Colorado, a quiet mountain town with farmers markets on Sundays and dog bowls outside every cafe. Mason was a paramedic, the kind of guy who stayed late, kept extra snacks in the ambulance, and sent "You okay" texts if I was 5 minutes late from work. We weren't perfect, but we were solid. Married 8 years. No kids, though we'd tried. Until it hurt too much. We had a cat named Pepper. Mason spoiled her like she was royalty. That Friday felt completely normal. He was scheduled for a 24-hour shift. I packed him a sandwich. We argued over the thermostat. He smiled, kissed me, and said, "I'll see you tomorrow, babe." But he never came home. At first, I thought there'd been a mix-up. A call that ran late, maybe a crash site with no cell service. But when the hours stretched into night and the station said he never showed up, I knew something was wrong. By the next morning, his phone was off. His car was found in a grocery store parking lot an hour and a half away. Locked. Nothing inside. Not even a note. No signs of a struggle. No fingerprints. Nothing. I filed a missing persons report. I called every hospital, walked the river trails myself, plastered his face on telephone poles. The police investigated. Friends came over in shifts, but with no leads and no evidence of foul play, the case went cold. Fast. 6 months in, the calls from the detective stopped. 9 months in, his parents started hinting at a memorial. By the 1-year mark, people started saying the word closure. But I couldn't grieve for someone who might still be alive. I couldn't bury a man who hadn't said goodbye. So I kept searching. I paid a PI more than I could afford. I dug through online forums. I scrolled through videos of unidentified bodies and Jane and John Does, hoping to not find him. Because in some twisted way, I believed if he was out there, maybe he had a reason. Maybe it was a mental illness, trauma, some memory loss story, like in the movies. Anything but what it really was. The 2nd anniversary of his disappearance was coming up when my best friend Alyssa dragged me on a weekend trip to Clearwater Beach. "You need this," she said. "Sunday drinks. Strangers who don't ask about your dead husband." I didn't correct her. We got to the resort. Ocean view. Little umbrellas in the drinks. Families splashing in pools. It was loud, bright. Too alive for the shell I'd become. We were walking down the boardwalk around sunset when I saw him. He was holding hands with a tall woman in a red sundress. 2 little boys were skipping ahead, pointing at a man twisting balloon animals. He was laughing. Wearing a ball cap, pushing a stroller, but I knew him. Every part of me knew him. It was Mason. Same walk, same dimple, same scar just below his ear where a ladder fell on him 3 winters ago. I stopped mid-step. My drink fell to the pavement. Alyssa turned to ask what was wrong, but I couldn't speak. Because just then, Mason looked up, our eyes met, and for the briefest, most gutting moment, I saw recognition. Then he smiled, soft, polite, distant, like I was just another face in the crowd, and he turned away. I didn't care who I had to push past. I ran after them. I didn't know what I was going to say. I just knew I wasn't letting him walk out of my life a second time. I followed them. The woman in the sundress laughed and leaned into him. The boys ran ahead, pretending their balloon swords were lightsabers. Mason, my husband, had a stroller in one hand and the woman's hand in the other. They stopped at an ice cream cart. He crouched down beside the youngest boy, maybe 2 or 3, and wiped syrup off his cheek with a napkin. The kid giggled. The woman kissed Mason's shoulder. I stood 10 feet away, staring. My pulse was in my ears. My hands were trembling. Then, before I could talk myself out of it, I stepped forward. Mason. He turned. His sunglasses made it hard to read his eyes, but his whole body went still. The woman blinked, confused. Do you know her? He hesitated, just long enough to betray everything. Then he said calmly, No. Sorry, you must have me mixed up with someone else. I laughed. Not the funny kind. The, are you kidding me, kind. The you left me and now you're lying to my face kind. I took another step. It's me, Claire. He said nothing. The woman looked between us. What is this? Mason nodded toward the kids. Can you give us a minute? She didn't move. I said please. She scooped up the younger boy, called the older one, and walked a few yards away, still watching us. He pulled off the sunglasses. And just like that, I was face to face with the man I'd loved for a decade and hadn't seen in 2 years. He didn't look guilty, just tired. You weren't supposed to see me, he said. I thought you were dead, I whispered. We held vigils, we searched lakes. I filed reports. I slept on the living room floor for 6 months thinking someone would come knocking with bad news. I know. No, you don't, I said. Because you were out here, building this. I gestured toward the kids, the woman, the life. You left me without a note, without a goodbye. Why? He looked down. Because I didn't want to be Mason anymore. That sentence was a knife. He went on, voice low. I felt like I was drowning. That life, our life, it felt like it belonged to someone else, the house, the job, the expectations. I couldn't breathe. So you faked your own disappearance. I didn't fake anything, he snapped. I just stopped playing the role. I swallowed. What was I then, a prop? He didn't answer. I stepped closer. Who is she? Her name is Julia. We met a few months after I left. She doesn't know who I was. She thinks I lost my wife in a car accident. I closed my eyes, hands clenched at my sides. And the boys? Her older ones from a previous marriage, he said. The younger ones ours. My stomach dropped. You had a kid. You started over that fast? He looked away. That boy is 2, Mason. 2. You left me and started a new family in months. I didn't plan for any of this. You didn't plan for anything, I said, voice rising. You just ran. You erased me like I was a typo in your life story. He looked back at me then. Really looked. You deserved better, he said. I did, I agreed. But I also deserved the truth. I walked away before I could cry. Or scream. Or both. Back at the hotel, I told Alyssa everything. She stared in stunned silence as I sat on the bathroom floor and recounted it all. He just left, she said finally, like I was no one. And somehow that hurt more than if he'd died. I couldn't sleep. I kept seeing the boy's face. No, he wasn't mine. But he could have been. He should have been. That life should have had me in it. So I did what I swore I wouldn't do again. I hired another PI. Not to chase ghosts this time, but to find the truth. I needed answers. I needed facts. I needed control. Her name was Natasha, ex-cop. No small talk. She got to work fast. Within 5 days, I had everything. His new name was Ethan Carr. He'd legally changed it in another state. He had a new job, new address, and a new life insurance policy. And yeah, he really was engaged to Julia. They were planning a beach wedding. The kids were enrolled in private school. There were no loose ends. He'd tied them all off perfectly, except me. I stared at the PI report all night. Printed on clean white paper were the details of the man who once shared my bed, and now signed a new name on school enrollment forms, tax documents, insurance papers. Ethan Carr. Same birthday, same face, new life. I couldn't stop looking at the photos. Him in a polo shirt mowing the lawn, playing tag in the front yard, wrapping his arm around Julia at what looked like a barbecue. The woman who thought she knew him. The kids who called him dad. All of them are living a lie, built on the bones of my truth. The next morning, I typed out a message. No anger, just facts. I know who you are. I know what you did. I have the documentation, the records, the timeline. I won't come unannounced, but I'm done being silent. I didn't send it. Instead, I drove to his house. It was exactly like the photo. Blue shutters, freshly cut lawn, a toy fire truck in the driveway. I parked down the block and sat there. Engine off, windows cracked, breathing hard. At 3:11 p.m., the school bus pulled up. The older boy jumped off, backpack bouncing. Julia met him at the porch, smiling. 3 minutes later, Mason walked out holding the younger one. Liam, I'd learned from the PI. He hoisted the boy on his hip, kissed Julia, and led everyone inside. He looked content. And that's when it hit me. He really thought this could last. That night, I left a note in his mailbox. Not threatening, just clear. I know, I've seen it all. You owe me a conversation. The next day, my phone rang. Unknown number. I answered. Claire, he said. Just hearing my name in his voice again. It was like being punched in the chest. He didn't apologize. Not really. He just said, I didn't think you'd find me. I let the silence do the talking. I'm not going to stop you from doing what you think you have to, he added. But please, if you blow this up, you're not just hurting me. I know, I said. I'm not asking you to forgive me, he said. I wouldn't. But I'm asking you to think about the kids. I let that sit for a while. Then I said, you think because you replaced me with a prettier porch and 2 booster seats, I won't light a match and tell the world who you really are? He didn't answer. I hung up. I didn't sleep for days. Every option felt like drinking poison and expecting it to taste sweet. I could go to the police, report the identity fraud, expose the faked disappearance. I could tell Julia everything, show her the PI report, force her to see the man behind the mask. Or I could leave it all alone. Let him have the fantasy. Let them all keep living inside the version of him I used to know. But then, who would I be? I went home and stood in my kitchen for hours. Our old photos were still in a box in the closet. I hadn't thrown them out. I couldn't. I pulled them out now, flipped through snapshots of the man who kissed me in front of Christmas lights, who held my hand at the hospital, who said forever like it was easy. Then I burned them, one by one, watched the edges curl and blacken, and for the first time since he disappeared, I felt light. I didn't expose him, not because he deserved mercy, but because I deserved peace. I filed for divorce under his birth name, attached everything the PI gave me, let the courts figure it out. I didn't need revenge. I needed my own life back. These days, I don't think about Mason much. I think about myself. I go to therapy, I travel. I joined a book club that reads trashy romance novels and drinks too much wine. And when someone asks if I'm single, I just say, not anymore. I'm mine again.